Hi, this is Marc with your analysis of the week commencing 1st of March 2010. Very difficult week last week. Prices seem to be all over the place. This week is going to be technically, we're going to have to pay a lot of attention to news and fundamentals. There are 3 or 4 interest rate decisions this week, starting with the Australian, I believe. There's the pound, there is the euro, and there is the Canadian. So if you are trying to trade off weekly charts, you need to make sure that those trades are not going to fire on the interest rate days. And equally, any weekly analysis needs to stop by the close of the candle on Thursday. I never ever trade NFP Friday. To me, it's Forex at its most stupid. Now, Friday was a good example of a stupid down for Forex. Everybody was expecting the British pound GDP news to be worse than expected, and therefore the pound wasn't coming out recession. And there is a school of thought that says on those days that price has already been factored in, allowing for this bad news. Well, the news came out that was good, and what happened to the British pound? It fell 160 pips. Now, a few years ago, I remember a similar situation with the dollar. No matter what good news came out, the dollar went down. And that is what's happening at the moment. A few weeks ago, everybody was putting the boot in on the euro, and now everybody's kicking the pound. The euro, on the other hand, went up last week. Is the problem solved with Greece? No, it's not. There is some news at the weekend. Some minor politician has claimed that the Germans and the French will come up with a deal for the euro, and more major politicians have denied it. But that problem has not gone away, and equally Spain, where I live, there are problems, and some of the other Mediterranean countries, and their accounting policies are going to be open for close scrutiny. So the euro, I perceive, will still go down. The problem is when, and the problem is for all of what's going on at the moment is where to look for entries, because what we need is pullbacks, and this is British pound on the weekly. Excuse me. And you can see clearly how price moved down last week. It moved up initially, and then fell away, and has settled here. And the area that it settled on, 52.30 area, if you look across here, was previous support and resistance on a weekly chart going back to May 2009. So this is a strong area. Now for me tomorrow, what I need is the pound to move back up to give me a possible entry back down again. And the only thing I can see at the moment really is the 153.65 area, which is a 50% fib, and it's not a million miles away from a recent low here at 53.40 and here at 53.80. So really it's a little bit vague, I'm afraid, but 53.65 to 5400 I would be hoping to short the pound. The euro is more tricky. As I say, we've been looking all for the last couple of weeks. The euro has come down and hit and sat and stopped at this 55 EMA on the monthly, and this is now candle closed. We're waiting for a new one. I would have much preferred had we broken down here. We've had a 5-8 cross. Stochastics are pointing steeply down. Everything says that the euro on the monthly is going to continue to fall. However, we had on last week, this is a weekly pin bar reversal candle, and the week before was a doji candle, and basically this one is complete indecision, and this one allegedly is a reversal. So where would you look for a possible reversal? I will be wary with this, because if this is a strong reverse, this could pull back a long way, possibly as far as up to 1.400 before pulling back. But 1.3740 tomorrow will be of interest, because it was a recent area of support and resistance going back here, and we have the 200 EMA here on the weekly chart. On the daily, I have fibbed last week's move, and we are already above the 61.8, and it looks as though we have a 5-8 cross forming and stochastics going up. And on a lot of charts at the moment, I have divergence on MACD, and divergence simply means that MACD, here you can see MACD is going up at the time that the euro was going down, and this suggests a reversal, and this is what happened last week on the Euro GBP. Euro GBP on Friday, we were hoping that this was going to pull back down and give us a candle pattern breakout from down here, but the English news, the British pound news, kept me out of that because of the silliness, and the price of the euro has gone up. Well, one clue that the euro pound was going to go back up, as I mentioned earlier in the week in one of the videos, was this divergence on MACD again. Price here was going up and price here was going flat. So difficult for the euro USD. As I say, one possible area to look for is 137.40, but I would only go half stake if I was looking to short. because of the fact that it could well keep going before falling down again. Dollar Swissy. Now this is a dollar Swissy on a weekly chart. Last week we were hoping for a pullback to here to 1.06560. We never got it. Again, I would be looking in this area for a possible long, and I would be looking up here again for a possible short. The Bank of Switzerland does not want the dollar Swissy to gain too much strength, but there is an obvious area of resistance here, and it's more clear on the daily chart. This is the Swissy on the daily, and you can see that for the last 2 weeks really price has simply bounced twixt the two. So look for possible shorts here and possible longs around here. Dollar yen. The dollar yen seemed to be going back up last week, but we have a weekly trend line here I was showing you in the earlier video. Price reversed clearly here on the daily dollar yen at the 200 EMA and turned back down. It struggled for days and days and days at the 90 area, but finally Thursday broke through and pulled back, and we are now below the 90. So for me now we're in a downtrend. Ideal place for me for a pullback for a view to a short would be 90 again. Euro yen on the daily. Now euro yen on the daily, we have had some wonderful flag pattern breakouts recently where I've showed you how the length of the pole is equal to the distance of the move further down, and it has worked on a number of pairs. The theory goes then that here we've had a breakout, we've already had a pullback, so this could have gone away. But this is the daily Bollinger Band, which I've been showing you the last few weeks. If this was to close up, it would suggest the euro yen is going to go up, at least in the short term, and I will be looking for clues around this trend line in between the 50 and 60% fib for a possible short back down. Aussie dollar yen. This is the weekly Aussie dollar yen. Very, very tricky at the moment. As you can clearly see, the last 2 weeks price has been stuck between the 200 EMA at the top and the 55 at the bottom. You've also got an overall trend line here coming up, as well as a horizontal resistance at the top. So, very difficult at the moment. One possible thing is if it does get up as far as 82.67, be looking for shorts as we were looking last week, because there are multiple reasons up here. Monthly and weekly EMAs at the top. Obviously, if that be the case, then price has got to get up there first. A potential area for a short again would be here at 81, because we have the daily 55 EMA and we have the 61.8% fib pullback for last week's move. So that again would be an interesting area for me. Pound yen. Pound yen, a similar situation, has broken through new lows for recent times. Again, the only way I could play this would be a possible pullback up to here to 138.40 area because of a recent low here at 138.21 and then a further one at 29, and it's the 50% fib again. Anything further up than this little trend line, I would suggest I suspect it's going to go back up again. Euro pound, I'm going to leave this tomorrow. I said there is a hell of a lot of news this week, and you need to pay particular attention to your calendars. Particularly tonight, the Royal Bank of Australia governor is speaking. Tomorrow there is some pound news, and it's housing related as well as manufacturing PMI. CAD, GDP news, there's a load of stuff, so watch your calendars every day. But basically the reason for my concern now is this is a weekly trend line that goes back many months. Price has now clearly broken above this area that we were looking at last week, where we're in this upper trend line. It broke and closed above it. The EMAs are turning up. We have diversions on the MACD, as I showed you before, and stochastics are pulling back up. Area to consider possible shorts, but only half stake. I will be looking around 90-27 area, but I am not overly confident. The USD CAD on a weekly chart, and again you can clearly see that price has been bouncing between 1.0366 and 1.07. If it gets up to 1.070 again, I will be looking to short. If it gets down here to 1.3665, I would be half interested, but it is counter trend, and therefore I would be considering a possible long anywhere in that area. It will be tricky this week. Pay close attention to your calendars, and probably best to trade off daily charts. Have a great week.